This is Joe Biden, the resident of the United States. In late September 2023, Axios published a piece about how Biden's staff was working on a critical project for his re-election bid to make sure that Joe Biden doesn't trip and fall. As voters express deep concerns about the 80-year-old president's age and fitness for office, Biden's team is taking extra steps to prevent him from stumbling in public, as he did in June when he tripped over a sandbag at the Air Force Academy. As you may recall, the Commander-in-Chief tripped over a sandbag and fell in front of 25,000 people at a military graduation of all places. It was quite the accomplishment. Some senior Democrats privately have been frustrated with Biden's advance team for months, citing the sandbag incident and noting that the president often appears not to know which direction to go to after he speaks at a podium. Oh, I see. It's not Joe Biden's fault. It's his team's fault that Biden wasn't looking where he was going. And it's his team's fault that Joe Biden is constantly confused as to which way he's supposed to walk off a stage, which is a huge meme at this point.
Anytime Biden finishes a speech, he transforms into a Roomba.
Often without context, Republicans have used video clips of Biden looking confused about where to go after speeches to raise further concerns about his age. So when Biden looks confused as to which way to walk off a stage, it's missing important context. When Joe Biden attempts to shake hands with a ghost, it's missing context. What's happening here? Well, all I can tell you is that it's missing valuable context. Besides, it's not like it happens every speech. Nothing to see here, guys. And another thing that his team is doing is making Biden use the shorter stairs on Air Force One. Because forcing Biden to walk up or down more than a few steps is a risk that they can no longer afford to take. Biden's team is betting that any mockery he receives over using the shorter Air Force One steps and wearing tennis shoes will be worth it to avoid another public stumble. Okay, those aren't tennis shoes. Joe Biden is wearing Skechers slip-ins, presumably given to him as a precaution so that he doesn't accidentally trip over shoelaces. Anyway, just hours after the Axios piece was published, Joe Biden, while walking down the so-called short stairs of Air Force One, stumbled yet again. And look, it would be one thing if Joe Biden, who will be 81 in November, stumbled in public once, twice, maybe even 3 times over a 2.5-year period. But unfortunately, Joe Biden has now tripped, stumbled, and fallen over a dozen times. And from an optics perspective, it makes him look clumsy, weak, and old.
It's black, anyway.
So just 2 weeks after Axios reported on Operation Please Don't Let Biden Trip and Fall, the resident visited Pennsylvania, where he sporadically half-jogged to the stage, and you'll never guess what happened.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
So who are Democrats supposed to be angry with over this? Why did you put those stairs there? Are you trying to make him fall? Democrats, including some in the administration, are terrified that Biden will have a bad fall, with a nightmare scenario of it happening in the weeks before the November 2024 election. I think at this point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Sad, really. Next, on Sunday, October 15th, Scott Pelley of 60 Minutes interviewed Joe Biden. But first, they had a very important message for the viewers.
Late Thursday, we met President Biden at the White House. It had been a rough week, and we could see it on him. Mr. Biden will be 81 next month, and he has said that when he's tired, his lifelong stutter can creep back in.
So 60 Minutes thought that a disclaimer stating that Joe Biden was tired from doing his job was going to be helpful. And what's funny about that disclaimer, being completely objective, is that Joe Biden didn't actually stutter, well, any more than he usually does. So pointing it out was unnecessary. However, there were other issues.
Can you foresee U.S. troops in combat in this new Middle East war?
I don't think that's necessary.
Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country.
Guys, he's tired. It's just a stutter.
As we spoke to the president, his Secretary of State was in Israel, his defense secretary was at a NATO meeting on Ukraine. America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this.
I mean, Joe Biden always seems tired, but thanks for pointing out the f***ing obvious. Days later, when Biden visited Israel, he looked and sounded even more exhausted and thought it would be appropriate to drop an anecdote about his Senate days.
You know, years ago, I asked the Secretary of State when he and I were working in the Senate to write something for him, and he said, he wrote a line that I think is appropriate. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it, I'll wait later. Taking too much time, but the point is this, that
Joe Biden went to Israel to project strength, which of course is impossible because, I mean, just look at him.
There's limited fighting already on the northern Israeli border, and I wonder, what is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't.
What?
Don't come across the border, don't escalate this war.
That's right.
Huh, I didn't know that Scott Pelley was Biden's national security spokesman. Thanks for your service to the Democrat Party, Scott. I'm sure your check's in the mail. And I'm sure that Biden's don't message really scared the bejesus out of Iran. I'm sure they'll be backing off any minute now.
Does the dysfunction that we've seen in Congress increase the danger in the world?
Yes. Look, this is not your father's Republican Party. 30% of it is made up of these MAGA Republicans who are maybe, democracy is something they don't look at it the same way you and I look at democracy.
Claiming that Republicans are making the world less safe? Well, that's an absolute disgusting lie. Joe Biden's entire tenure in office has been an unmitigated foreign policy disaster. For example, the chaotic withdrawal of Afghanistan, where 13 service members were killed. That wasn't Republicans, that was Joe Biden. And that whole fiasco showed the world America's weakness under Joe Biden, which opened the door to Russia invading Ukraine. And it wasn't the Republicans who decided to relax sanctions on Iranian oil sales, which allows them to generate hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, which in turn is used to sponsor Hamas and Hezbollah. No, that was Joe Biden.
Are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time?
We're the United States of America, for God's sake. The most powerful nation in the history, not in the world, in the history of the world. The history of the world. We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense.
Joe Biden wouldn't even shoot down a Chinese spy balloon as it flew across the continental United States, collecting intelligence regarding our nuclear missile sites. But if you think that Joe Biden can take care of anything, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. But of course, Joe Biden never takes responsibility for his massive failures. Instead, he always tries to shift the blame to Republicans, despite the fact that he continually promises unity, not division, and he's going to bring America together.
I've tried my very best, and I'm sure I haven't met the test of all of you want me to meet. But tried my very best to meet the highest standards, whether you voted for me or not, because that's the job. To deliver light, not heat.
Well, if that's his job, he needs to be fired, because Joe Biden is a two-faced liar who routinely calls half the country a threat to democracy.
There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy, the MAGA movement. Let me tell you about this ultra-MAGA agenda. It's extreme, as most MAGA things are. This is not your father's Republican Party. This is a different breed of cat. So how extreme are these MAGA Republicans? If the MAGA Republicans win control of the Congress, it won't matter where you live. These MAGA Republicans won't stop there. The extreme MAGA Republicans are a clear and present danger to our democracy.
Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.